Welcome to Ponca City Monthly's podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and this week I've got something a little special for you. Brett Horton is a musician from Ponca City who has released a new album called Songs Plucked From the Air, and he's currently touring around the country with it. He'll be stopping at the Alley on June 27th, and we caught up with him from his home in Brooklyn, and I did a Zoom call with him. So here is that interview. Enjoy.
When did you fall in love with music and knew that that had to be your life?
Well, I think when I just started getting songs stuck in my head and couldn't get them out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like,
What was the song that you first got stuck in your head? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I remember one time just in grade school, I was already getting insomnia, and I was just laying there and like for hours. Then I just started singing to myself because I didn't have anything else to do. And then I've been doing that for a long time. And that was before I played any instrument. But even before that, as early as I can remember, we would sing songs when I was a kid. My dad played guitar, and he would we'd learn songs with him, and we'd have to figure out the words just on an old record player because we couldn't look the words up to a lot of songs. So we would sing, like Beatles and Elvis and country songs and Weird Al, things like that.
Yeah.
It's anything really. And so then I later on, I never really learned how to play an instrument until later. And I got into Nirvana and that whole scene, and saw them all playing guitar while singing and everything, and just started a band up right around then.
I think I read on your bio that you were 13 when you started the band, or did you have a band? Was that your first band?
Yeah, I started it with some neighborhood friends, and
Nice.
we had underwent we had a lot of different friends coming and going in the band and change the name all the time. When somebody would change the band, and like at one point, I wasn't even in the band, and then the band changed and I was back in it, and it just changed all the time. But the whole thing was a natural progression of that original band that we started, really, until later when we recorded we recorded an EP in a studio in near Ponca in the Osage, and we had a band name then, and then that band even changed its name, and we started calling it the Guards, and like Gardes, and we put out several albums like that, and still we had a lot of lineup changes all the time. So at that point we just kept the name because it was just changing so much. But then still at the same time I started doing things solo, and then using other band names for different things. And so nowadays I've just been I've always been bad with sticking to names or finding what name I wanted to use. I can come up with all kinds of names that I would like to use for a few days with something to encompass it. So lately that's why I just put out an album for now, just on my own, because essentially, I'm a songwriter, really. So whoever I'm playing with or playing by myself, it's still that's just what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your first instrument that you learned to play?
It was guitar.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you learn that because your dad did that, or where did that come from?
Yeah, my dad had a guitar sitting around the house, so I started learning how to do that on the acoustic sitting around, and then I got an electric, and yeah. So yeah, guitar was the first one for sure.
Very cool. How many? Oh yeah, I was gonna say, how many instruments do you play?
I don't know for sure, because there's some instruments that I've messed around with that I've learned a song on, but I wouldn't say I know how to play them really. Like an accordion, for example. I have an old accordion, and I've made up a few songs and stuff and played it on that, but I wouldn't say I know how to play the accordion all the way, but I would like to. It's just I started learning piano later, and I was kind of transcribing things I'd written on the guitar over to the piano and actually really learning the piano, or the keyboard. But I haven't. I've been meaning to get one out here, but say I went overseas for a long time, and I wasn't like traveling with a piano overseas or a keyboard and a guitar. I was traveling light, so I just didn't have it around me all the time. So I could be better at that right now. But I met an old Japanese guy who started teaching himself his first instrument, piano, when he was almost 60 years old, and now he does recitals, classical recitals in Tokyo. So I think that you can learn an instrument really at any time if you really want it bad enough.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. Well, tell me a little bit about this new album that you have out. It dropped in January, so it's fairly new.
Yeah, I got it sitting right here.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, this record is it's called Songs Plucked from the Air, and I didn't know for the longest time what I was going to call the record. Actually, I just decided to put a record of my songs together, and it just came about the way it came about. I mean, finally, when it was nearly done, I just decided to call it Songs Plucked from the Air for some reason, and I think part of it had to do with with finding a four-leaf clover. I mean, I found four-leaf clovers before, but it was a subject I was talking about with someone, and some others last year were finding a lot of four-leaf clovers, and something about plucking a clover and plucking just a string, So I went back and put an overdub on one of the songs with a violin doing a little pluck on little parts. So a lot of the times when I've made stuff before, I've had just the whole idea for what I wanted to call this album and everything before, but this is one time where I really had no idea what to do as a title or a cover. I was just putting songs together, and it's only my second vinyl that I've pressed. Actually, the first one was a compilation of a lot of different friends of mine, and I'm on that one as well. It's called Out the Cellar and Over the Plains. So there's two 12-inch vinyls from this label called Willie Cry Records that are out there. And before that, there were plenty digital and CDs, but so
as an artist, you like having the vinyl? Does that make you feel like old school?
yeah, it does. It feels good, actually.
Yeah.
On wax. I'd like to keep pressing more. I went into a studio here in Brooklyn one time, and I have a few just direct live recordings to vinyl. It was recorded on this machine I feel like was actually from the 1950s, and you just play live, just one take, and it cuts directly to wax. So just a little like clear 45 record, and it was real old school. I mean, it was real staticky. It sounded. I haven't actually heard it on a really good system, so I don't really know what it sounds like. But it was pretty lo-fi on my little portable record player that I have. But so that's the other one that I have on wax. But this record right here is available at a new record store in Ponca City called Anthem Records.
Yep.
Downtown. And it's also both of these records I'm talking about, they are in record stores coast to coast, actually, in about I think they're in over 100 record stores, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you said you're a songwriter, so do you write just a bunch of songs and then decide that these songs work together as an album, or did you come up with you said you didn't know that it was going to be an album. So how did you write the songs for that?
I was writing a lot of different songs, and these were just the ones that I ended up sort of producing the most, actually. I mean, just, I was recording real lo-fi demos to a lot of them, but these were the ones that just kind of started popping up here during this decade of the 20s. There's been some other ones that have been produced as far as like really mixing them and adding all the parts and mastering them and all that. But these were the ones that were popping up, and you have to pay attention when you're doing a vinyl record as to the length of what's going to be on each side. So if you're just going to put something out digital, you can make it as long as you want. You don't have to worry about a side A or side B. But so you just kind of start picking these different songs, being like, okay, I can get as much as I can fill this side up as much as possible with this group of songs, and then this group of songs. So you usually get maybe about 22, 23 minutes or something for optimal sound quality on the side of a vinyl, of a 12-inch vinyl. So these different factors come into play. And so it's a lot trickier, of course, to put it out on the vinyl than it is just popping it up on the digital stream, right? So I had these songs. I just wanted to keep them as pretty fresh recordings, and so that there was that. I had to figure out. I had to just make a mix that I felt like would fit the time, and then I just picked some out that in case I'm going around playing solo shows that it can represent some of that. There's some songs where it's kind of more like with me playing by myself, and then there's other ones where it's more fleshed out playing with the band. So I got a variety of those on the album. And I also, just because the first solo album that I did, whenever I first released a solo CD, I had a couple of songs on that original one, but I had new recordings of them that I had done, because I always wanted to record them over. Because on the first one I did, it was just me playing in one live take on an acoustic guitar with a harmonica, and I always kind of heard them with more instrumentation. So I had redone these songs. I thought it was cool to put on this first vinyl that I'm pressing, to have actually a couple of those same songs that were on the original solo CD I do, but new versions, which is more kind of true to the original vision I had of them.
So if you had to pick one song on the album that represents the album, which one do you think it is?
That represents the album. Okay.
We're going to talk about my favorite from the album, but I want to know what song do you think represents?
I really think that I sort of feel like the very last song maybe represents the whole album, and that's the one that people so far have seemed to talk about the least. Maybe I haven't really. It requires me to really play it the best is with a band, and there's this girl vocalist on it, Nuria Zarko, who's singing on it, who really makes it complete with these horn players, that were playing on the album. And well, that's, if it doesn't represent the album, I don't know if there's any one song that represents the album. They all just kind of it's a really hard question to do. There's just different ones. They're all a little different, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, one thing is I told people when they asked about this album, I said, well, it doesn't rock really, because but it does, like, it has a good flow to it though. And I say that because a lot of the stuff we've done as a band has really been just upbeat, just like really kind of getting into it, rocking kind of stuff really. But this one is kind of mellow really, except for there's still some of the songs. So it has a kind of a little bit of a folk rocky vibe to it a little bit, but with a little bit of, it's got a little bit of touch of jazz to it as well. And and whatever else, a little bit of blues. I feel like I think more so as opposed to one song representing the whole album, I feel like each song more kind of represents a different kind of style of songwriting that I do. Mm. But it still doesn't even encompass like all of the variety of songs that I do. People are always asking me what kind of music I play, and it's always been one of the trickiest questions to answer. And I started saying, it really depends on who I'm playing with, honestly, what kind of music I'm playing, really. Because a song, at one point you kind of realize that a song can actually be played in different genres, really. You can take the same song and turn it into like a, punk rock tune, or it could almost be like a country song or like a folk song. Kind of depends on what instrument you're playing with, who you're playing with.
Yeah, and I think that comes across on the album, because there is some of the folkiness, but then it breaks out into some harder stuff, like with writing the record like a merry-go-round. I thought that would, as I was listening, because I just put on my headphones and just kind of laid back in my chair and was listening, and it's kind of like you said, that sort of folky jazz, and then you get to that and it's like, oh, this is kind of like a Beatles rock song kind of out there. So yeah, I like that a lot. I like the variety of the music and stuff. So it was very cool.
Yeah, that song, the writing the record like a merry-go-round, that's a song that was very specifically, I feel like, written for the record, actually, because it was a song that I saw that there was still, maybe like 2 minutes of a side that could be filled. So then when I told a friend of mine that, I was like, yeah, that's a filler song pretty much. He goes, oh, well, I don't like it as much anymore. But he was just joking, because I'm like, it was just and they used to do that a lot, actually. I think they'd be like, okay, we got this time, let's write a song for the record, right here. But it feels good to write a song just for the record. You're like, all right, I'm putting this just right on this for this. Just like we did that also for the first record, for the compilation. There was about 2.5 minutes left on the last side, and we're like, oh, we can fit a whole song in that time frame, and that length of song really feels like kind of like an early 60s song. So you're just really feeling like old school like that, to just like make a song for that space right there.
Well, Brett, I'm looking forward to your show whenever you come to Ponca City in June at the Alley.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that place. That'll be the first time. It's a great new venue in Ponca City, and there hasn't really been much of live music venues in the hometown for a while, I feel like. So
yeah, it's going to be great. And you're going to be playing with Arms of London, is that correct?
I'm going to play with Joel's band is on the bill. I think we're going to play some together, and we need to figure out exactly how we're going to do it, how many sets everybody's doing, and what exactly it's going to be. So I have a friend who's coming into town with me too, that I've been playing with, and yeah, we're just gonna get it together. It's been a while we played together in Ponca.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks. It was nice talking to you.